In this instructional video, we're going to be working our way through Challenge 8, which is classes, tags, and IDs. Classes, tags, and IDs, classes and IDs are a great way to create complex layouts in HTML and do some really cool stuff. So we're going to get into that. The first thing we want to do is go to our HTML folder. Let's make a new folder inside of there, and we're going to call this one Challenge 8. Now we're going to open up brackets. After we open up brackets here, this will open, and I'm going to close all these files because I don't need those anymore for now. And now let's go File and New, and let's go File and Save, and I'm going to save this to my Sasser HTML folder inside challenge number 8, and I'm going to call it challenge 8.html. Of course, we want to start this exactly the way we start all assignments, with an HTML tag and then a closing one, and then we want a opening head tag and a closing head, and then we want an opening body and a closing body. Inside the head, we're going to add our title tag per the usual. Let's see, here's what the title should be. So I'll copy that and I'll paste that in there and save this. And now let's open up our HTML file by double clicking on it. It opens in Chrome, and you can see we've got our title up top there, just like that. Let's jump back here, and we can see we've got 4 divs. 1, 2, 3, 4 divs. So let's make those 4 divs here. So I'll go into here, back into brackets, and I'm going to make one div with a closing, div 2 with the closing, div 3 with the closing, and then div 4 with the closing, just like that. So now I've got 4 divs. If I refresh this, nothing shows up on my screen because we haven't styled those. But let's go ahead and move along here. So the background color is going to be this CC99FF. So let's put that here. So let's make an internal style sheet. So we'll say style type equals text/CSS, just like that. And let's add in a body with the squiggly brackets here, and we'll say background color with a hashtag, and then paste that in there. That's a hexadecimal color again, and that changes the background color to this purple color. All the font's going to be this Poppins font. So let's go ahead and see if we can get that. Let's open this up. You may have to select each version of this. I don't have to in mine. I'm going to click Get Font, click Get Embed Code, and here is the Poppins font. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste this up in the head as well. So I'll do it above my style sheet right there. And then we want to use this as the font family for my Poppins font. So I'll close this. I've got that now, and we can put that right here in the body. And so now again, if we key anything in here, it'll be inside that Poppins font, just like that. Let's close that. Now, you can see that we've got lots of divs. They're all 800 pixels wide. They all have a 20 pixel padding and a margin bottom of 20 pixels. Now they have different color borders, but what we're going to do is essentially style each one of these. So we are going to get this border color first, and let's add in a style for the div tag here. So we'll say div, and we can do width 800 pixels, and we'll do margin dash left of auto, and we'll do margin dash right of auto, and then we can do padding 20 pixels, and then we'll do a border, and you need 3 declarations for this. The width, 1 pixel, if it's solid or dashed, and then the color. So we had that color copied. So now if I jump back here and refresh this, you can see there's all my divs right there. 1, 2, 3, 4 divs. They've all got the yellow border, or the orange border here. Now let's go ahead and give these a margin on the bottom, margin dash bottom of 20 pixels, and save that. Now those are spaced out really nicely. Okay, so now let's look at the assignment sheet here, and you can see this first thing, we want to create a banner inside Canva. So I'm going to go to Canva. I'm going to make sure I get logged in here. So now I'm logged in, and I'll search for web banner. And then if we do that, we can find some are pro, like we kind of talked about last time, some are not. But let's find one that we like. Let's see. So this one is, you can choose customize, so we can use this one. So this will be a good one. And so we'll get that one, and we'll say classes, tags, IDs. And then let's give this our name, Patrick Sasser. And then let's go ahead and download this. I'll click the share button, and I'm going to click the download button, and I'm going to choose to download as a JPEG. I'll click download here. So now we just downloaded it. It's inside my downloads folder. So I'll copy this, and now I'm going to put it into my Challenge 8 folder, and I'm going to call it banner, just like that. And now let's go back to brackets, and let's put this image in the first one here, in the first div. So we'll do img source equals, and we'll do banner.jpg. And we need to give it alt text. We'll say alt equals classes, tags, IDs by Patrick Sasser, like that. And we'll close that. Doesn't have a closing tag, remember. Save this, jump back here, refresh that. You can see significantly too large, right? Okay, so what we've got to do is jump back to our code, and let's set a width, style. Well, actually, let's do this here instead. So we'll do div, and we'll do the img inside of that div, and we'll say width 800 pixels. So now that fits in there nicely. So this again is internal CSS, and we're targeting the images in the div tag. Now if we had any other images on our screen, they would all be 800 pixels wide. And so you need to be careful of that in the future for sure. Let's look back at the assignment sheet here. You can see the navigation div here. Now this one is the same, except it has a different border. And this is where we're going to use some tags and some classes and some IDs here. Now, so this is, everything's the same except it just has a different border. So let's copy this declaration here, and let's jump back here, and let's put a period, and we'll say nav div, like that. And then the only thing different about the nav div is that it has a 2-pixel border that's that color. So 2-pixel solid, and we'll put the word border beforehand, just like that. So now the nav div will have this border. Everything else will be the same here, like that. So now if I save that and refresh this, nothing changes because we haven't applied this class. This is a class. If it begins with a period, it is a class. So now we can come down here, it's on the second div, which is this div, and we can say we want this one to be the class of nav div. So we'll say class equals, and we'll do nav div, like that. Save that, refresh that, and now you can see just this div changes. So we have two things on there. We do have a border of 1 pixel solid of this applied, and this one. Now this one will override this one because we've targeted with a class. Now one thing we could say here, we could also say div nav div, and so that is saying any divs with the class of nav div. If I refresh this and change this, you can see it doesn't change at all because that is indeed what we have. If you said this will go back because now you're saying a div with another element inside of it with the class of nav div. So this is another element inside of it with the same class. Now here we are saying this is a div with the class nav div. So you can also just say this as well. So I'm just going to say that. Now the nav div here, we're going to put a nav tag in there, and we're going to put 4 links here. If I look at the assignment sheet, we've got ESPN, MileSplit, CNN, and USA Today. So let's do href, and I'll put like that, and we're going to make it open in a new window, target blank, and we're going to say ESPN, and I'll copy that and paste it, and now we'll say mile split, and I'll copy that and paste it, and this one will be CNN, and I'll copy that and paste it, and this one will be USA Today. Now let's go grab these links. Let's search for ESPN. Let's copy that link, paste that in there. Let's get CNN, and we'll copy that link and paste that in there. And now we'll get co.milesplit, and we'll copy that link and we'll paste that in there. And then let's get USA Today. USA Today. Let's get this one. Let's copy that link and let's paste that in on USA Today. So now I've just made those links inside of there just like that. And now let's look at the assignment sheet and see. So these you can see text decoration none, and it has a hover style here. So again, let's just apply these here. So let's do, we'll do nav A. And we will copy this just so we can get a look at it, and we'll paste that here. So it has a text dash decoration of none. It has a background color of FF6600 and a padding of 10 pixels and a color of white. And then it also has these hover styles, so I'm going to cut that out of there. And we'll do nav A with the pseudo class of hover, like so. And now we'll paste that in there. Now if I refresh this, you can see, look at that, got a nice hover just like that. They look really good. Now we want these to be centered in this space as well. So let's do that. We'll do nav like that. And we'll do text dash align center. Now those are centered. And you can see we should also technically add a display inline block like that so that it spaces those out and it makes them the actual size that they are. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that if we put a tag in this div here, will this look like the other ones? Refresh, no, it does not. It only looks like that because we've said nav A. It only looks like that if it's in the nav tag. So now if I put a nav tag here and close it after the link, now this link will look like that. So again, we've targeted A tags inside the nav. If you want to get more specific, we could target the nav tag inside the nav div class. So now we're targeting the A tag that's in the nav div. And we'll do the same thing here. So now if I refresh this ESPN link goes back to the way it was. These stay the same because they are the same. So now we can get rid of this link inside of this one because we weren't actually supposed to do that. And now let's look back at the assignment sheet. So we've got a family div that's a little bit about your family. It's got an H1 that says a little about my family with these styles here. Okay, so let's go down here and let's put an H1 and let's say a little about my family. And then the bottom div says my favorite vacations. Let's do the same thing here. In the bottom div, my favorite vacation, like so. And now let's refresh that. It says a little about my family, my favorite vacation. Now you can see this one wants us to get another font, the Modak font. So let's get the Modak font. So I'm going to say get font, get embed code, and here's the Modak font. Now, one thing I would like to do is I don't want to include all this embed code again because we've got this already included. So if I look in my head, you can see these two lines are already included. So now we can get all these in one declaration. So really we want 3 fonts: Modak, Indy, and Poppins. So let's get Modak, Indy, and Poppins. So right now we've got the Modak. Let's get Indy Flower right there. So let's get this one as well. Now I've got 2 fonts in our family. And now let's get one more, which was Poppins. So now I've got 3 fonts here, and if I look at this embed code, you can see it's got 3 fonts included: Poppins, Modak, and Indy Flower. So I'll copy that, and I'll go back here to my brackets, and I'll replace this with that declaration: Modak, Poppins, and Indy. So let's save that. Nothing will change right now, but we've got all that included. So now let's look back here, and we can see our family div has all the same settings except it has a different border. So now let's come up here. Let's make a new style for the family div. And this one is going to have a 3-pixel border just like that. So we'll say solid, we'll put a semi here, and then we'll say border like so. Now let's go down to our 3rd div. There's my 3rd div right there. So now let's just say class equals, and we'll say family div. Now if I save this and refresh this, it'll have all the same settings except for the border will be different, because we're using classes here. Now let's look at the bottom div is the vacation div. Again, all the same except the border is different. So now let's put in a, and we could say dot vacation div like so. And then I'll paste this in here, and we'll do border colon, and we'll make this solid. And we'll put a semi down here, and then we'll make this one be vacation div. Save that. If I refresh this, you can see that one looks different. So you got a 1 pixel, a 2 pixel, a 3 pixel, and a 4 pixel border on this one. Now, one other thing to be aware of is it doesn't necessarily have to be a class. You could also use what's called an ID. The thing about a class is you can use it multiple times. So if I paste this vacation div here, now those both have the class of vacation div, and now those two will match. But if you're only going to use the style one time, you can make it an ID. So I'll put a hashtag here before this. Now this means it's an ID. If I save this and refresh this, this goes back to the way that it was here. But if I come down here, instead of saying class, if I say ID and refresh that, now that has that 4 pixel border. So the thing to be aware of here is if you use an ID, you should technically only use it one time. It's like a license. You should only use it one time. It's your ID. Now I can say ID and make this vacation div here, and that will technically work. It's just grammatically, it's just syntactically incorrect because you're not supposed to have 2 things with the same ID. Okay, so now we've used IDs and we've used classes. Let's look back here. We know we want our H1s to be centered because both these H1s are centered. That's the same thing about them. So let's come back to our code up at the top. Let's make an H1 and let's say text-align, and we'll do center like so. Now I can refresh that. Now those are both centered. And now let's get some paragraph text here. So you're supposed to write about your family and your favorite vacation. I'll just copy that and I'll put these inside here. So a P tag here, and I'll paste that paragraph, and then a P tag here, and I'll paste that paragraph. And now I've got a paragraph and a paragraph in there. So now the next thing I want to do is add in the styles for our H1. So you can see H1 with the same text as to the left, uses Modak font, bottom border 3 pixel, and same color as the div. Okay? no padding, no margin. So now let's add these styles in. So I'll copy this and I'll paste this inside here. So we don't want to do this on all H1s because then they'll be the same. We want to do it on specifically the H1 we're talking about here. So let's do H1 and we'll do family. So this will be the family's H1. I'll paste that in there so we don't need this. So it has a border on the bottom of 3 pixel, solid, and it's the same color as the div. So let's see the family div right there. So we'll put that there and paste that. And now let me just save this. If I refresh this, again, nothing will happen, nothing changes. So now let's apply the class family to this. Let's go find this one and let's say class is family. Now you can see that shows up with a nice border on the bottom. The next thing we want to do is be sure that we use that Modak font on there. So here's the declaration for the Modak font right there. So let's copy that. Let's go to the family div, family H1, and we'll use the Modak font there. Save that. Let's see, we've got and now if I refresh this, it looks a little bit about my family. And then we can turn them, if this said to turn the margin, so we can say margin 0 and padding 0. And that will space things out a little bit better. By default, this has a margin on the bottom, and so now we've just turned that margin to 0. And you can see maybe that font is just a little bit hard to read. So we could adjust that slightly. We could say font dash weight, and we could do normal like so. And I could refresh that, and now it's a little bit easier to read. Because it was bold and this font doesn't really have a bold, I made it a little bit easier to read. So now let's look at the bottom one. It's this indie flower one here. Let's go back here and let's do a new H1, h1.vacation. So we're looking for an H1 with the class of vacation. It has the same text. It uses the indie flower font. It has a border bottom of 4 pixel, and we'll do solid and the same color as the vacation div, which is that right there. And now if I save this, and we need to do indie flower, so we'll go back to here and we'll get our indie flower declaration. And now if I refresh this, you can see nothing changes. Well, it's because we haven't applied the class here. So the class we're looking at is vacation. So let's apply that class here. So we'll say class is vacation. Refresh that and you can see that shows up as that indie flower font. And you can see this one looks a little bit thinner, so let's make it not bold and let's get rid of the margins and the padding as well. So we'll say margin 0, padding 0. And we'll also do font weight normal. And now let's refresh that. That's a little bit easier to read. And it has no padding, no margin. And that completes this tutorial. So we've learned about classes, which begin with a period, just like that. And we learned about IDs, which begin with a hashtag like that. And then you need to specify what class it is and what ID it has as well, like so. Something can have an ID and a class. So now when you're ready to submit this, you're going to jump back to your folder and you need to right click and compress this or send to a zip folder because you need to turn a zip file in because we've got at least 2 files in here just like that.